Hey, before we get going today, I wanted to give you a heads up. Before you know it, Halloween's going to be here, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then New Year's. And then we're going to have to worry about, how do I pay for all this holiday spending? Let's go ahead and make a New Year's resolutions list. And let me go ahead and guess. Last year and every year before that, 2 of your resolutions were pay some debt off, save some money. I can help you do both of those. Check both of the boxes at savewithconrad.com. And how's this for starters? No house payments until next year. I mean, let's face it, your single biggest bill, that's your house payment. Well, if you got to pocket that cash for both November and December, wouldn't that make the holiday season just a whole heck of a lot easier? Of course it would. And let me also talk to you if you've got credit card debt. Man, you know you can do better than that. What is your rate on that credit card right now? 28%, 31%? You know those interest rates are too high, and you know you can do better. Not only that, did you know that the interest you pay on those credit cards is not only sky high, it's also not tax deductible, whereas the interest you pay on your mortgage is tax deductible. So if you could get a better rate, a greater tax deduction, skip your next 2 house payments, and come next year, a lower monthly payment, what are you waiting for? We're routinely helping our listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. But how much can you save? It's free to find out right now at savewithconrad.com. And I want to give you a heads up, we're not a bank or a credit union. We're not going to say no and treat you like a number and show you the door. We're going to say not yet, but here's how. You need a plan. You need a friend in the mortgage business. And that's me. Let my family help your family at savewithconrad.com. It's no cost, no obligation. And if we can't save you some cash, we won't waste your time. Get a quick quote. You'll be glad you did. SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com.
Words are about to be spoken on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, brought to you by the Ad Free Shows podcast, Heat and Wrestling, according to Alba Networks. I'm John Alba. That guy right there, that's the broken one, the one, the spoken one himself. Mr. Matt Hardy, what's going on, my friend?
It's a great day, man. It's a beautiful day outside. It's a little warmer than it has been down here in Cameron, North Carolina.
Warmer? Really?
A little warmer, yeah. It's been chilly the last few days.
It is so cold up here right now.
Yeah, it's nice because it's like comfortable outside. It's 60, 65 outside, so that's nice. But yeah, it's a beautiful day. Some of the kids had been sick a little bit the last week or so, and my wife as well, and everybody's getting a little better. And yeah, it's all good, man. I got 4 lovely, healthy kids. I got a beautiful wife who goes hard for me. So it's all good, man. I have no complaints. I woke up on the right side of the ground.
Goes hard in pretty much everything she does. There's no doubting that. We gotta get some. I know you're using her studio to take this podcast, so I know I want to say something as I've got a blank white wall behind me, but we got to get some Matt Hardy paraphernalia behind you there.
Probably with the way she's rapidly expanding things at this house, I'm sure I'll have a studio. She adds
that'd be great.
She adds several things a year, so I'm sure we'll end up having one before it's all said and done.
Who's your favorite Pokemon?
I mean, it's probably Eevee, just because I have an owner that is nicknamed Eevee, obviously after Ever, her shoot government name. I was a big Snorlax guy at first when they first introduced me to Pokemon too, because we had a big Snorlax that everybody could lay on, and it was very comfortable. It was by the TV, so I would lay there and be lazy as shit and just enjoy laying on Snorlax.
Love to hear that. I was a kid in the very height of the Pokemon boom, and it was that franchise dominated everything. There'd be Pikachu showing up at WWF Raw. It was absolutely freaking nuts at the time if you didn't live it.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I realized, I remember hearing about it all the time because, you know, during the whole Pokemon craze, I was obviously staying busy. I was working. I was in the trenches. I was, you know, busting my ass. But I remember hearing about things that became viral, that became sensations during that time. And I know the Pokemon deal was one. And it's had quite the perseverance because it's lasted for a long time. And right now it's still as popular, I feel like, as it's almost ever been.
No one back then carried around that Game Boy Color in the locker room. Would the Undertaker or Bradshaw have slapped them around if they saw that?
They probably wouldn't have been big fans. They probably wouldn't
Okay.
have been big fans of carrying the video games around. Just a
No.
different time, man. Different time, different existence, different
Locker
era.
rooms just needed to be more rugged with all those painkillers and guns around. That would have been a much better way to promote a healthier locker room. Anyway, so it's great to hear that
I never saw a gun in a WWE locker room. Just for the record,
That's
I know
good.
you threw that
That's
out
good.
there. I have definitely seen. I've seen pain pills at some point, but no guns.
Do you believe that the locker rooms have been free of guns throughout the entirety of your career?
No, not necessarily.
Okay,
But I have
that's what
never
I thought.
seen one. I have never known of one being there. Like, and
That's fair.
usually they were pretty strict with those things. You know,
I think you
that was
should have dug a
that was a
little
pretty big
deeper
deal.
into the dumpster when your bags were in there.
Well,
You
maybe
might
so.
have
Yeah,
found something.
yeah. And it's funny just because in some ways I am glad I went through some of that because it made me tougher as a human being. As weird as that sounds, it was an interesting time. It's wasn't the right thing to do. It isn't how I would try and craft someone or how I would try and shape guys that you hope can keep the company going for years to come. But I look back at it and I do realize that it made me tougher, and it definitely was an experience that I didn't necessarily want to endure, but I gained and I grew from enduring it.
Tougher than a $2 steak, as good old JR used to say.
Indeed.
Stay tuned for some steak contact, by the way. You're talking about stories. Let's talk about the stories we're going to tell at the Night Outcade with the Hardys, Matt. We're just over a week away from this thing. WrestleCade.com. Search the tickets, and you're going to be able to purchase a 2-for-1 event. It's an Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast, followed by a Jeff Hardy concert in Hardy Country, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Saturday, November 30th, after the WrestleCade Super Show. We've been taking this show around the country. We're on tour, baby, and we are going to be telling some great stories that night. What can people look forward to, Matt?
It's going to be great. It's going to be a fun-filled night of storytelling. I'm just going to be sharing secrets that I have never shared before, and it's going to be extremely interactive, which we love that. We love audience participation. I feel like these things, regardless of what the topic is, regardless of what we are, giving details about, there's always Q&A. The fans are always interactive, and that's one of the most fun thing about doing these Extreme Life of Matt Hardy live stage shows.
Well, I'm going to break the topic right here because I haven't even informed you yet of what it's going to be, because I like to try to keep you on your toes. But we're going to be talking about Tales of the Tag Teams. Matt's going to share stories of some of his favorite tag teams he's worked with over the years. Teams like the APA, like Too Cool, like Edge and Christian, and many, many more. Maybe even the Headbangers, who these are some of the best stories that you've got in the pocket, and I can't wait to share some of those throughout the years, especially the Attitude one. The Attitude Era stories are some of the best. So Matt and I will talk about some of those, plus Jeff is going to break it all down with a concert afterwards. This is Hardy Country. These are some of the very best, and I mean absolute best fans out there. They're going to stand in line for hours upon hours to see the Hardys sign. You get those tickets at WrestleCade.com as well. And then afterwards, they're going to stay and hang out with us. WrestleCade.com. Pick up your tickets. 2 for the price of 1. It doesn't get any better than that. I think Big Money Matt would be quite in favor of that frugal saving, wouldn't you?
Indeed. And I got to say, just WrestleCade is more than just this one day, too. I mean, it's a whole weekend of festivities. It's a celebration of pro wrestling. You have guys that are legends that are there that are retired. You have guys that are currently still wrestling on the tail ends of their careers. You have guys that are like mainstays right now that are modern in the pro wrestling scene and are hot as can possibly be. And then you have the next generation, too. So that's one thing that is super cool about WrestleCade. There's a little something for everyone. And then on Friday night, we're going to be there. TNA is doing a live premium live event on that Friday night, TNA Turning Point, which is going to be available on TNA Plus, which is going to be really cool. And myself and Jeff, we are teaming with our boy Ace Austin, who is almost an honorary Hardy right now. He is going to be joining us as we take on the Rascals and Kushida. So that's going to be an interesting first time ever match.
How about that? Those are 2 teams I didn't expect to see squaring off with one another. So that should be great as well. Come join us at WrestleCade. It's going to be a blasty blast. Can't wait for that. Okay, so we got a few things to talk about. By the way, our topic this week is going to be all about Survivor Series 2006 in one of the weirdest matches of your career, but I'm very excited to talk about it with you. I'm sure you've got some good stories from it. And last week we discussed Eddie Guerrero.
Why is it weird, John? I'm curious.
Because I think it's just it's almost like if you took like how they used to for the Royal Rumble, they used to do the lottery balls where they put them in the little tumbler and you pull it's almost like you pulled just random names out of a tumbler and made a Survivor Series team out of them.
I don't know. It was almost like they said, like, let's take the 5 most popular baby faces and put them together.
It's a good point too. But I think when you look at it in terms of what do these things have to do with one another, it's a very unique team to be put together. So we'll get into how all that came together. But we did talk about Eddie Guerrero for the second time last week, and we talked about his passing. You had a really nice interaction with his daughter.
Yeah, it was nice. And once again, I let her know via the Twitter, via the X, whatever people refer to it as nowadays, just that, I'm eternally and forever like sorry for her loss. It's very hard when you lose a parent. She was very young whenever she lost her dad. Myself and Jeff, we had to endure that, and we endured that with our mother, and it was not easy. It was very tough. It was very challenging, and you feel like you miss a big part of your teen years when you don't get to go through it with one of your parents. So it was definitely a tough scenario for her. But then once again, she, said a couple kind things back, that my dad always said really nice things about you, that you were one of the good guys. And, it was just a very friendly exchange, and just let her know that, I support her and I'm sorry for her loss, and that, I'm sure her dad would be proud of her.
I have no doubt about that. Go check out that episode. I apologize too. My mic last week, we checked it beforehand. Everything was fine. Then all of a sudden it switched off as we started. With Matt and I use StreamYard to record. We've been having a few StreamYard errors over the last few weeks that we've had to clean up and post. So apologies for that. Let's talk a little bit about what we got ahead of us here, Matt. We got AEW Full Gear coming up this weekend. Someone that you and I both have a lot of vested interest in. Daniel Garcia has his TNT championship match with Jack Perry. I know you're a big Jack Perry fan as well. We've talked a lot in regards to Garcia, someone who we've had on this podcast, by the way. Go check that out, extremehardy.com. We've talked about how it felt like there were several opportunities to get him really heated up into a big star on the program, and then they didn't ultimately end up pulling the trigger for him. They've got him hot again. The crowd's ready to see him win the TNT championship. Do you think this is finally the moment for Daniel Garcia in AEW?
It should be. I think it needs to be. You get to a certain point whenever you get guys right on that precipice of becoming one of your main stars and getting into a scenario where the fans really believe in him as like a legitimate top guy in your company. You have to pull the trigger when the time is right, because the fans can lose faith in performers. And I feel like they've had a few opportunities with DG where they could have done that, and it hasn't happened yet. So I think this is a situation where it's paramount that they do pull the trigger on him and he becomes the TNT champion, and you really try to establish him as one of the foundational guys at AEW.
I think that's a great point, and making him a foundational guy, I think, is very important ultimately for how things move forward. I am really curious, Matt, as to whether or not we see a scenario in which they almost half-ass it and don't go all the way with him, because it almost certainly has to be a situation where you have to pull that trigger knowing that there's not going to be another opportunity to heat him up like this, because eventually you're going to condition the fans to register with themselves when they see him in a big match. Well, he's not going to win it. He never wins the big match. And that seems like you're undermining the character almost.
It is because it's one of those deals where you have a character, and once you get him over, and like Daniel Garcia, he started doing the dance and he was getting over organically, where the crowd started reacting to him without him being pushed into a scenario where you push the guy, and you kind of like force feed him to the fans, where they eventually catch on, where fans catch on and they end up supporting him and joining him. He got over organically by doing that dance, and they found him entertaining. They thought he was a solid wrestler. They liked his personality, whatever it may be that hooked whatever fan. They caught onto him organically. But now they're at that point where it's kind of a crossroads where it's like, now you have to pull the trigger. And from your side, from the booking aspect, from the promoter side, you have to show the people that you believe in this guy, and you have to move him forward and make him one of your foundational players.
Yeah, it's almost, I call it, when I talk on Patreon a lot, I talk about it in the terms of, it's like Big Show syndrome. You knew Big Show was someone who was always going to be in a big spot. He could be a threat at any moment, but he never would win credible matches. So the audience knew, okay, if Big Show's going to be in a match, very seldom was he ever a threat to actually win it. And that's not his fault. That's how his character was positioned. So I hope that that doesn't become the case for Garcia. We were worried about that being the case with Private Party, but they did end up getting the win as tag team champions. They had a segment
and you got to look back. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
you
go
got to
ahead.
look back. Whenever Private Party won that match, the reaction in the crowd was overwhelming. Like, people were legitimately excited that they won, because like AEW caters to a much smarter audience too. They cater, like the sickos that you've heard them rave about. Like, this is for the sickos, you know. And they I think the sickos and the diehard fans, they were like unsure if Private Party was truly going to get the trigger pulled on them. And once they pulled the trigger and they won the titles, there was a huge reaction, and people have faith in them. And I think their build as champions the last few weeks has been solid. And I think they need a real good title run to really solidify them as foundational players going forward in AEW.
They had a segment with the Costco guys backstage. The AJ, the Costco guy, going to be wrestling QT Marshall. What do you think about the integration of that, by the way? I think this is something that AEW should have been doing a long time ago, stuff like this. The Costco guys are legitimately one of the hottest trends on all the internet. I'm glad they finally put this on TV. I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but the reality is these guys are super relevant in pop culture right now. Seems like a win-win.
I mean, I agree, and I'm a fan. I don't know these guys, but I'm a fan of their shtick, right? I love the deal, and I saw their deal with Private Party. The interaction was cute. It was good. I read a little bit of feedback to it online, and I watched Dynamite. I watched the entire show this morning. I hadn't sat down and watched the entire 2 hours as I was training this morning doing cardio. And I dig it. And I do think AEW should have been doing stuff like this more often. I mean, they're a viral sensation. People know who they are. People like it. I think QT on his end, like, people give QT a lot of shit, but QT Marshall is great. He knows what he's doing. He's a great heel. He knows how to get people to dislike him. He knows what he's talking about. He's smart in the ring, and like, people hate him. But I mean, that once again, that's his job at the end of the day. And this go away heat that people say, that's not a thing. Go away heat is not a thing. There might be people that are sickos that want to watch a match is going to be a banger. They might tune out because it's not exciting or fast paced enough for them, but that is not go away heat, because those guys that are heels that truly get heat, who know what they're doing, that is something that is necessary and essential for pro wrestling. And I think that's something that AEW also needs as well. But the Costco guys, as far as that goes, I saw some people like shitting on that, saying it was not good, that it was terrible or whatever else. And one of the tricky spots I think Tony Khan's going to find himself in is he is catered so much to the sicko audience. There's going to be casual fans that are going to see things they like, and then they might not necessarily, the sicko fans might turn on him just because it's a casual act, and something like the Costco guys, or something like a Broken Matt Hardy, or something that is cinematic, or something, whatever it may be. You know, if they don't like it, if it's not up their alley, which is a niche alley, then they might turn on him. So that's kind of a weird situation he finds himself in, because I think it's very important to like walk the fine line of like trying to appease to everyone.
It is goofy. It is campy. But that's the whole Costco guys act. It's super goofy and campy. And
but what's wrong with that? What's wrong?
No, I don't necessarily think there is anything wrong with that. When I saw people were like, "Oh, QT Marshall's rap back to them was so bad," I'm like, "Yeah, like it was supposed to be. That's kind of the point. It was supposed to be goofy and forced, because that's what the Costco guys thing is." And I can understand if you're annoyed by the Costco guys in general, like if it's not your thing, why you'd be annoyed with this being on your pro wrestling program. But we also do have to recognize that some of the most successful moments in professional wrestling have involved pop culture being integrated into the programming. And AEW hasn't done a ton of that, but this seems like something that could draw some eyes, at least to the 0 hour, and maybe it'll translate to pay-per-view buys for them. And you know, AJ, the Costco guy, was a professional wrestler for a while, so it's not like they're going to have this horrific match. I suspect it will be a totally palatable match that, yeah, I don't really have much of an issue with that. But I want to hit on what you said about go away heat
Mhm.
not being a
Please,
thing. Why do you
please.
believe that that's not a thing?
It's a viewer that is sitting there that just someone they find someone boring in some capacity is not actually a true casual fan. No one's going to do that. If someone has a shtick and it's good and it's entertaining as a heel, as it should be, where it pisses people off. Like the go away heat thing is the most annoying thing. Like
But
everybody,
could you just
people in the business think they call people marks that use that. Like I've never said that one time in my life. It's like it's the dumbest terminology ever. Like I get it. Someone might not be your shtick and you might not like it, but like to say someone has like go away heat from everyone because they're so bad. That's like totally exaggerated to the ultimate max.
well, I don't
Because one
necessarily
person
think
doesn't like them.
I don't necessarily think that go away heat translates to someone being bad at what they do. I think in the eyes of some fans it might, but I think generally speaking, people look at it from the perspective of I'm tired of seeing this character on my TV. I don't want to see this character on my TV. Not because I hate them, like for being a bad guy, but because I don't find this character to be something that adds to the program I'm watching. And I'll use an example from pop culture. Have you ever had a TV show you've watched where there's a character that you like them for many seasons, and then come season 6, you're like, man, the arc for this character sucks, and I really don't enjoy any of the stories they have for this character, and I think the show would be better if they sidelined him until they put something better for that character on. Have you ever encountered that with any show you've watched?
Not really.
No? Okay.
I'm not critical. Like I'm not one that is hard to be entertained. I am not a critical thinker. I am critical of my stuff when I do it, and I want to make it as good as possible. But I
Yeah.
mean, there's obviously shows that have happened where I've said like, oh, they've written themselves into a corner. There's really, the ending wasn't that great. I mean, Dexter, the first time it ended, it was,
Yeah.
a
The
weird
first time,
ending.
right. Right. Yeah.
Then even the second time it ended, it was like I felt like they were doing a great job right up until the end, and the finish was like, ugh, a little too
Yeah.
fast. They could have developed it into something else. So I mean, there's times where I can be critical, but like go away heat, like I'm not going to watch because this guy's on. It's an absurd term in
Yeah.
my humble opinion.
Like you didn't watch The Office, right?
No, I haven't. I have
There's a
not watched
character on
The
The
Office.
Office, Andy, played by Ed Helms from The Hangover.
Mhm.
And he's a great character when they introduce him. He's really endearing. He's silly. He's goofy. He's a loser punching up at life. And you find that really endearing and you like get it on board with his journey. And then he becomes the boss after Michael Scott, Steve Carell leaves the show. And the character writing completely changes. He becomes a totally different character. And it gets to the point of ridiculousness. And you're like, none of this aligns with who this character became. Every time he's on screen, the general audience is like, this isn't something that vibes with who this character has become. And the show benefits from when they sideline him for a period of time. And I think that's the correlation I have with what people term as go away heat, where I don't think any heat per se is permanent. I think people can renew
Okay.
their relationship with a fan base, with a viewing audience. But I do think oftentimes in wrestling, there are characters who overstay their welcome in that iteration, whereas they would benefit from going away for a bit, retooling, being off TV, and then returning with tweaks or with something evolved. That's my view on what go away heat is.
And I mean, that's a very fair assumption, explaining it that way. And there are times where obviously characters become stale because once again, this isn't like I am not Bryan Cranston playing Matt Hardy. This one character, and it goes for 6 years, and then I move on, and I'm Bryan Cranston playing Rebecca Hardy, or I'm Bryan Cranston playing John Alba, or I'm Bryan Cranston playing whoever. Wrestlers, you play one person throughout your entire career. I've been playing Matt Hardy for 33 years. I've been playing it on a national scene for over 30 years now, including enhancement work. But you do have to change things to like make the character fresh, to make the character different, do whatever it may be. And that's, and as opposed to being an adrenaline junkie, is one half of the Hardy Boys, Matt Hardy, becoming Matt Hardy version 1, the Sensei of Mattitude, a guy who's full of himself and over the top delusional, into merging back into a new version of the Hardy Boys and like recreating the magic again. And then the Black Cloud Matt Hardy, whenever I turned on Jeff because I was jealous of him, whatever, went back to wearing tights. Cold Blood Matt Hardy, if I was in the right state of mind, I could have done something much better with that, I'm sure. Big Money Matt Hardy that came along, into Hardy Boys once again, into Big Money for a minute, and then Broken Matt Hardy. It's just it's a constant change, it's a constant evolution. And once again, I've said this in the past, it's something that myself and Jeff are excited to do now that we have won the titles, kind of like move into something different and something new and creative, and kind of challenge ourselves again, step out of our comfort zone. So that's something we're looking forward to doing. But I don't disagree with what you're saying. Characters can be put on TV so long that maybe it is time for them to change their act and whatever it may be. But a lot of that, I feel like, comes down to the booker and also the character itself. It's very important for the character itself to make sure you stay up to date with like what is going on in the audience and feel like you're actually on the pulse of what they want.
They both go hand in hand, I think, and you have to have collaboration from both sides of the equation with that. And the guy who always gets brought up here, and we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, but it's Chris Jericho right now, where Jericho, undisputed legend, on the short list for greatest professional wrestlers of his era, innovator, no questions asked, one of the most important people in AEW history, easily. But there is a contingency of the fan base and the live crowds too, because let's not discount the live crowds. You often talk about how
I will never discount a live crowd.
Right. So where they're not super invested in the stuff they're seeing, where they become very vocal about it. And Chris, who I think is one of the greatest reinventors in wrestling history, I believe personally that he would benefit greatly from some time away, rebooting, recalibrating, and coming back when people least expect it and having another run. And I think a lot of people think that way.
Maybe. I was just going to say, I watched his segment back on Dynamite this morning where he was walking away from Ishii, and it was so funny. I don't know if you saw that online or whatever, because he said, well, I'm going to get my people to read over this contract again. And he starts walking away, and the guy follows him like all through the back of the venue. And then they go into the live crowd all the way to the ring. And eventually he makes him sign the contract. And it was very entertaining. So Chris Jericho is a really interesting example. Chris, much like me, he's a little older than me, obviously, right? A few years older. And he's been around longer. He obviously isn't going to wrestle like he's 25 years old, but he's still extremely talented and gifted considering he is 50 plus. He is also in front of a very strange audience because Tony Khan caters to an audience, and he said it over and over, the sickos, the sickos, the sickos. And I'm catering to that audience too. Also makes him go like, well, this guy's not giving me like what this 25-year-old guy would give me. He's not giving me what like Kyle Fletcher would give me, or like Will Ospreay would get, but he's not going to. He's going to offer entertainment. He's going to he's going to offer character development. He's going to offer storytelling, whatever it may be. And I get it's not everyone's cup of tea, but once again, he's kind of already in a weird position. Jeff and I were in a weird position there. The live crowd would be great. Every night we would go out. There was never a time where we went out there and got booed, or where they were quiet, or they weren't into us. It was great all the time. Every single time we went out there. But once again, with Chris, you see like the online feedback to Chris, the online feedback to us. It's like that. And you have to understand like the online stuff isn't everything. That is the most diehard of the diehards. And it's really hard to gauge your product on that. And sometimes Tony caters to those people too much as opposed to like casual fans. I think casual stuff is something like you said, the Costco guys, or things from pop culture that you could use, whatever. Like I loved it. The thing he did when Tyson came in that time. And there's a couple instances where I've had the thing with Shaq. I thought all that stuff was super cool when AEW did it. But I would say just be more focused. I would prefer AEW to really put long time, a lot of time and thought into giving me a 2 or 3 month story, and then build the matches around that story, as opposed to coming up with all these matches and building the story around the matches. Because I feel like they prioritize matches before the moments and stories.
So you don't think there is a long-term story in place for these characters?
I don't know. Even I think there's some people they have long-term stuff in mind for, but then I think if it doesn't go the way they think it will go, they change it real quick. There's a lot of things that change on the fly very quickly. I think you need to like plot out a story and stick to it. And if you change the good guy and the bad guy's role in the story or something like that, whatever it may be, which you have to be careful about doing that too much. But I would like to see more focus on mentally. Like the most important thing is the arc of this character or these characters that are doing this story together. Let's put that together first, and then we'll build the matches, as opposed to building the matches first and then kind of like interweaving the story around that. And that is something I think that would improve AEW.
Well, that's kind of like a consistency with characters in general, I guess. Like motivations have to be earned and they have to be consistent. One of the things that really didn't make a lot of sense to me was Chris Statlander going from working with Stokely against Willow to all of a sudden, for essentially no rhyme or reason, being a babyface. And now she's going to face Mercedes at the show. And listen, I suspect the match will be very good because I think Chris Statlander is a hell of a wrestler. And obviously we know Mercedes Moné is a hell of a wrestler too. But the character motivations weren't consistent. I've had a lot of people in my Wrestling According to Albert group have been like,
yes, I agree.
Where the hell did this come from?
And John, that is a great point you made. That's a perfect example, and it's kind of a glaring example because you had Chris Statlander, who's this heel who like screwed over Willow and did this and all, but now she's back to a babyface, and they're cheer her against Mercedes Moné, and very inconsistent. It lacked continuity. It lacked a lot of continuity. I also think there was a big problem with the MJF Adam Cole thing. I mean, they're navigating it as they can, but just the whole deal between the Undisputed Kingdom, how MJF was the one that got screwed over, but then he ends up being the heel, and like they're trying to get sympathy on all the guys who actually screwed him over. So it's a weird deal. It's a very weird deal. And
that one's a little more circumstantial just because of like how life played out, unfortunately. But
I understand it is, but still, it's very strange. You know what I mean?
You're trying to force a square into a round.
Exactly, and you're swimming upstream. And because even like Adam Cole, like he came out and Kyle O'Reilly confronted him, and it was just the crowd was just. It's a disconnect. I think it's a big disconnect. So I would like to see the stories thought through first and foremost, and like stick to them, and then build the matches after the stories, as opposed to putting the matches as the first priority.
Yeah, I think both of those things can exist in harmony, honestly. But
they can. They can. But you need to have a good direction of where you're going, especially with your top acts. Especially
that was one of the strongest parts of AEW in those first couple of years, where character motivations were really well fleshed out, and there were a lot 100%. Of layers to a lot of the stories being told. You had a clear understanding of what a lot of these characters were trying to accomplish, and that would eventually lead into the great matches. I think they worked well in harmony together. So hopefully it happens. I mean, they're downsizing the live events, so we'll see what ends up coming from that.
That's a great call, because I think AEW is going to look much more spectacular when they're in a smaller venue that is full, and the energy is going to be off the charts. I think that's a great call. I'm glad they're doing that, because when they're in a 10,000 seat building and there's 2,000 people in there, it's just there's a feeling too from the fans. I feel like if you're in there and you're in a 10,000 seat venue and there's all these empty seats, you're kind of questioning yourself, like, is this really the coolest place to be? And I felt like it was like that when after 9/11 and business dropped in WWE a little bit, and we would do house shows that were like half full or whatever. Like, people have to be looking around like, oh my God, is this really the cool place to be? Is this the cool ticket in town? Because there's like, there's so many empty seats here. And I think that's going to be extremely beneficial to AEW. I think it'll be beneficial to morale. And I think the viewers that watch at home, it will seem like a bigger deal, because the crowd's going to be smaller. It's going to be more intimate, and they're going to be much more passionate and energetic.
Yeah. And look, if the show's good, the show's good. That's all that will matter at the end of the day. So
yes. And once again, too, it's one of these things. I mean, the reason we even talk about this and address it is because we are all pulling for AEW. We all want success for AEW, because a successful AEW means more success for the men and women that are wrestlers. It means more success for the people that work behind the scenes in wrestling. It means more success for the pro wrestling fans. We all want AEW to thrive as much as possible.
Well, I'll be at Full Gear. So if anyone's going to be at Full Gear, shoot me a note. I'm super active on Blue Sky right now, but if you want to use the old form, go for that too. I'd love to see people out there. in Jersey, my home area. I'm about 10 minutes from the arena now, so it's nice, easy, convenient night. It seems like they've been trying to cut back on the press conferences going until 2 in the morning, so I look forward to being in my room by at least 1 in the morning. And yeah, but I'm looking forward to the show, and we'll see what happens with it. Look, Orange Cassidy, I love watching him, so seeing him in the main event should be good. He's got that Hogan tan now. He's ready to go against John Moxley, so that's what matters most.
And he's wearing his black, brother.
That's right. That's right. All right, Matt, we spent a lot of time talking about this stuff, so I want to get into our main topic. Before we can, you know what I got to ask? Please hit us with that Matt fact.
Matt fact. Matt takes great pride in being a provider and protector.
Okay, that's a long one to fit on a graphic.
Yes,
okay,
tell me. Sorry, my apologies in advance. I wanted to use both those words, and I knew that going into it. I was aware.
It's a bit. Okay, so your fatherly instinct kicking in there?
Yeah, just especially as I said, the flu bug went around and everybody was sick here except me, so I was the one running out and grabbing things and taking care of people and making sure they took their medicine and this, that, and the other thing. And I take a lot of pride in doing that. I take a lot of pride in being a provider and making sure that I make sure my family has whatever they need in any capacity, and also being a protector, keeping them safe and keeping them well. So it just kind of came to mind, especially after this week, because it was a pretty exhausting week, both mentally and emotionally, just trying to run the whole household and take care of everyone. So it is what it is.
Good that Matt Hardy finally makes himself worthy of acknowledgement in House Hardy. It's about time. You did something that's worth recognition. I'm sure your wife would agree with that. Hey, by the way, shout out Old Gang Grizzle. I don't know if you saw this. He had hip and knee replacement surgery.
I did see that.
So shout out to him, wishing him the best. Gangrel, for my money, is part of the greatest moment in Extreme Life of Matt Hardy history, when we had the Luna and Rebby comparison, which is an all-time moment on the podcast. Go check that out in the archives. Okay, let's talk about Survivor Series 2006. This went down November 26, 2006, so we are approaching the 18-year anniversary of this. 15,400 fans in Philadelphia, a great wrestling city, a hot wrestling city. This is back when WWE was still doing a lot of the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series matchups. It was before they were really doing Team Raw versus Team SmackDown every single year. So that was a nice change of pace, at least, to see some more traditional ones. We had the Team WWE Legends versus the Spirit Squad. We had Team Cena versus Team Big Show. And then the match we're going to be talking about on this podcast, Team DX versus Team Rated-RKO, a match full of many stars. But let's talk about the Survivor Series 5-on-5 concept. We've talked in the past about you teaming with the Dudleys back at Survivor Series 2000, but that was 4-on-4. The 5-on-5, man, you're a child of the 80s. This was a big part of WWE programming in the late 80s, early 90s. What did you like or dislike about the whole 5-on-5 elimination format?
We loved it. We loved Survivor Series. Growing up, like you said, I was a child of that time period when it kind of came in, when its nascence began, right? When Survivor Series became one of the big 4 pay-per-views. And it was always exciting. It was always cool because you got to see top stars mingle and interact and team up with guys that they typically didn't team up with, which was always fun to watch.
What do you have a favorite Survivor Series match, like a traditional one?
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one. I feel like what was there was one with the Warriors and the LOD, right? The Ultimate Warrior and the Road Warriors. Were they teaming at one point?
Yeah, that was 1990. Perfect Team versus the Ultimate Warriors.
Yeah, and who was their partner?
It was
Was it
Texas
Kerry?
Tornado.
Yeah. It was Kerry. Yeah, that was an amazing team. I was a huge fan of all those guys. So I love those guys together, and I love the Warriors' insane promos too.
Yeah, and that would have been right in your wheelhouse growing up there, 1992. So you guys are fans of the whole format. Now you have a chance as a tag team for the first time to compete in one of these. So that's kind of cool in these 5-on-5s, that is. Let's go back a little bit to 2006 and check in on the equity of the Hardys at the time. You guys have recently reunited. Jeff is back in the company around the end of summer or so. How did you feel the integration of the Hardys back into WWE programming was going?
It was good. I was happy with it. I was very I liked how they did that. I feel like too, one of the first times that we teamed was on an ECW program, and they
It
did
was.
that
Mhm.
because they thought we were going to bring eyeballs to that program, which was cool, and we were there for it because it was live. Um, but yeah, I was good with it. Whenever Jeff came back, they knew Jeff was good at that time period. Especially it just during that time, he was very good until he got beat up later. But whenever we got in there and started doing our thing and teaming, we were having fun, we were enjoying it, and we felt really good about how they had us positioned.
So you were okay with being put back in the tag team after a year prior. You had been one of the hottest guys in the company as a singles act. It was kosher with you to go back into a tag team.
100%, yeah. Especially because like I just knew I was still coming off of that Undertaker heat where they just realized like, okay, well, I guess we shouldn't try and beat him anymore because we can't kill him off. We can't like we can't punish him. You know, he's Teflon. That was like a mentality because I even said at one point, I remember sitting down and talking to Michael Hayes where I was like, should I go ask for my release? Like, how long is this going to last? Will it go? And he said, nah, it won't. You know, they're just that's kind of what they do. They just teach you a lesson because they they think you sinned and they're going to make you repent or whatever. And Jeff came back, and then everything went back to being kosher. So I had no complaints. And anytime I team with Jeff, I'm happy doing it, and I think Jeff is too, especially at this stage of our career. But like, we would rather do that than anything else.
Sure, I understand that. Okay, so fast forward here, 2006 fall. DX has reunited. DX reuniting in 2006 was a really big deal for a lot of WWE fans.
Hmm.
Shawn Michaels made his return to the ring in 2002. And I think a lot of people, Matt, probably expected Vince to want to go back to the cash cow with DX. And to management's credit, they didn't. They let it simmer for quite a bit. So here we are 4 years after his return. And in the summer of 2006, Triple H is being beaten down by the Spirit Squad, and here's Shawn Michaels making the save. It's a big segment where the two of them reunite, and now they going forward are going to be reunited as DX. Before we get into the nitty gritty of what that DX looked like, what do you remember about DX reuniting, and how do people feel about that?
I thought it was cool. It's very interesting that it happened. The vehicle used to reunite DX with Spirit Squad, which is so funny in so many ways, looking back in hindsight. I mean, I thought it was cool. I thought it was really cool because it's something they had been away from for quite a while and many years. And DX is an act that so many people held dear to their heart. So I thought it was beneficial. And I thought it was really cool. And just even having the opportunity to possibly be able to work with those guys, whether against them or as teammates, I thought was going to be a cool opportunity for us.
Why was it so funny that the Spirit Squad was the vehicle?
It was funny because when you think about Triple H and Shawn Michaels, you think about two tippy top guys, right? And the Spirit Squad was kind of a very WWE act where you had great workers in there, but they put them in this persona that was totally designed to just piss people off, to go out there and piss people off and be heels. Like, oh my God, these guys are male cheerleaders and they're doing this, they're doing that, whatever else. But I feel like you think if someone is going to like beat down Triple H and create this reunion, it's going to be some other top heel or some guy that is a killer or somebody who is real sinister or devious. Not the Spirit Squad.
Certainly was an interesting time, but Vince used them a lot, so he must have liked them to some capacity.
He did. He did like the Spirit Squad. Yeah, he was
So
very entertained by them.
the version of DX that we're seeing here is very different than the version of DX we saw prior. Gone is the profanity, and instead, or most of the profanity, I should say, instead, we're seeing a much more kid-friendly version. They're throwing the glow sticks into the crowd. This is right before the PG era is about to start. They're a little more TV friendly. Did anyone have any thoughts on that presentation of DX at the time?
I don't think so. I mean, everyone knew what the company's positioning was and which direction we were going as far as content on TV. So no, I don't think it was
Okay.
was an issue at all.
What do you think about having Sean back in that kind of role at that juncture of his career?
I mean, I loved it. I was super excited to have him back. I was super excited to get to work with him some, get to interact with him more, because like we never really got to do that, because when we started full time, like he wasn't around. He was gone for those first 4 years. We were there those formative years, and I would have loved to have had him around. I'd love to have gotten advice from him. I'd love to have got the opportunity to work with him as we were just, really starting to, cut our teeth and whatnot. But we didn't get those opportunities there. So I was hoping we would get the opportunities whenever he's coming back.
Yeah. On the flip side, Team RKO, two guys you know very well, Randy Orton and Edge, of course.
Indeed.
Team Rated-RKO. What'd you think of them as a tag team?
They were great. They worked together really well. They had great chemistry, and they're both so talented on their own. And you put them together, and they were both smart enough and intelligent enough as workers to really understand how to gel and put each other in the best positions to win together as a team, because they're both very, very smart workers.
So this match, as I said, it's on paper a little random, but there could be a reason for it, as you were alluding to. It is you, Jeff, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and CM Punk, who has just debuted on ECW not long prior to this.
Yeah, and Punk was really starting to get hot and get over it this time too.
Against Edge, Randy Orton, your best frenemy, the Hurricane, Gregory Helms, someone you had been feuding with throughout 2006, Johnny Nitro, and Mike Knox, both of them on the ECW brand. So a lot of changes going on with ECW being integrated more into the main roster style. Mike Knox was getting a really big push on ECW at the time. He was with Kelly. Johnny Nitro was with Milena. So on the surface, it's like you're pairing off guys who are feuding individually and putting them together as a team. Is that kind of the mentality here?
I think so. I mean, I think that's why that match came about in that way. I do know the initial idea was to, from Sean and Hunter, they just said, to have Sean, Hunter, the Hardys, and Punk all together, because they wanted to kind of solidify us as being top baby faces at that time.
So you think this came from Triple H?
They may have suggested it. Sean was he was very, he was able to suggest things to the old man, and the old man would listen to Sean as well. So I don't know. I know DX was very cool with having his team up.
Well, it's fascinating to me because we know over the years, Triple H, Paul Levesque, he had his issues with CM Punk, certainly. But even a couple of years after this, when your brother's getting his big push, there was some pushback on him winning the championship. And we know that Triple H was someone who was involved in that. So at this time, to your knowledge, things were all good to go here with Triple H?
I don't think there were any issues. There was no problems. I mean, the issues that Jeff had whenever he left WWE, those issues and that substance, that was gone. And Jeff was great at the time. So it's like, okay, another chance. And I feel like once, you go a few years down the road and Jeff was beat up and there was another issue with failing a drug test, then they're like, okay, well, this might not be a guy we can depend on. He might not be dependable. Maybe it's someone we can't rely on. So yeah, I understand where those concerns came from. It makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. But once again, it's undeniable, the popularity of all three of us at that time.
And Punk, he's looking for an opportunity here. He's on ECW. What do you remember about his attitude towards this match?
It was cool. I mean, it was great. That's, once we were first around Punk, everybody got along. And still, like, I don't have any issues with Punk. I think Punk is extremely talented. I think he's great. The only thing I say, which, people will hold over my head like, oh my God, he doesn't like CM Punk, was just that I think he was wrong, in the All Out deal where he called out the Elite and Hangman and everything else. I just think he was in the wrong there, and kind of started that problem. As far as Punk goes, so like, I don't have issues with Punk. I think Punk is talented as shit. He's very special. He truly is one of a kind, especially the way he connects with people. Like, he connects so deep to people. His emotional connections to his fan base is unreal. It's very reminiscent of the way Jeff's fan base connects with him, because they're just like loyal to that, to the very end, to the ends of the earth.
Well, you were the one who was the leaker for all the brawl out stuff. That's
Yeah,
what
of
the
course.
internet says.
Of
That's
course,
what.
of course. Yeah.
You've got Dave Meltzer on speed dial, and every single day you'd wake up and you'd hit it and go, "Did you hear this?"
Yeah. Yep. That's definitely fitting of me. That's certainly me.
That pops me so hard every time I hear that. I'm sorry. It's so.
No, it's fun. I mean, it's so funny. The people. It's. I guess it's just kind of complimentary that there's some people that just are pissed off at you so bad just because, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm like super nice to everyone. I try and help everyone. I try not to shit talk anyone. There's nothing that I won't say to your face that I would say online about you, whatever. I'm very much a straightforward person when it comes to that. And, like, if you look at where I came from, being a son, two sons, myself and my brother, of a poor guy who was a farmer, who didn't have any money, and built a pretty amazing life and career and family and stuff for myself. I mean, I feel like I'm doing pretty good in the big scheme of things, but it is what it is. I just, sometimes people get so obsessed with, they put like this sticker on people, or they put this label on someone, and they're like, no, I have to hate him. He is the enemy. He is the enemy.
Dude.
So it's just, you can't win those people over. So you just, that's not everybody's going to like you in life. You just have to pick up the
I've had
pieces and move on.
someone in the past week has made 5 different accounts to tweet at me or post to me the same thing, saying, "Are you excited to see your boyfriend Tony Khan this week?" I block him, then he creates another account and says the same thing. I just don't understand people sometimes. So when you put that into context, yeah, yeah.
So a fun tidbit from this match is whenever our producer came out and he was going to go over the match with us, and he was sitting back and said, "Oh, so what do you think?" And said, how do you guys want to do this match? It's going to be, Team DX over. And Hunter and Sean said, like, okay, well, what's the old man think? And he's like, I don't know. You kind of do whatever you want to do. He said maybe if they want to, they could like pick Punk off, or pick one of the Hardys off, or pick both the Hardys off, or whatever you want to do, or a combination, but then you guys win. He said, so whatever you guys want to do. He said he's going to leave it up to you guys. And they sat back and they said, how about we just do like there's no whole team surviving, right? He said, like, let's just let the whole team survive. And he said, you want to do that? He said, I'll buzz him on it. And he went back and buzzed him. He said, okay. Vince says, that sounds great. Nobody else is doing it, so you guys do it. It'll look great. So that's kind of how that came to be, because initially he said, like, yeah, if you want to like pick a Punk off, or maybe pick one of the Hardys off, or whatever else, but still you guys go over strong. And they said, we just kind of like rather the whole team survive. And that's what happened.
I'm almost surprised by that, with how protected Orton and Edge were at the time. So that's really interesting to hear. But you want to watch this match back and check it out?
Let's do it.
I think one of the most amazing things about going to a game, a concert, an event, whatever it may be, is having that shared experience with the people around you. There's just nothing quite like it, honestly. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to that special event even easier than before. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I was just looking at New York Giants tickets. For some reason, I'd like to torture myself. And I clicked through the Game Time Picks selection. It's very easy. You open the app, you go to Game Time Picks, and right away popped up the super deal, which gave me $55 off lower bowl tickets. That is fantastic for an NFL game. All you have to do is select it. Your tickets pop right up. You can check out almost immediately, plus with a view from your seat to know exactly how good that view is going to be. And 1, 2, 3, you are there, headed to MetLife Stadium, or whatever stadium you choose to go to attend whatever event you go to. Speaking of that view from your seat, I absolutely love the view from your seat feature, because a lot of times you're going in blind when you're going to a show. Sometimes you've never been to the venue before. Sometimes the venue seating has changed from the last event you went to. So view from your seat allows you to get an actual picture of what is ahead and what you can look forward to when you arrive at your seat. And with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find pricing elsewhere that suits you better. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry with Game Time's ticket coverage. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Use the Game Time picks, curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and anything else. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code HARDY, that's HARDY, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, so if you'd like to cue up the cock, we fast forwarded through the 12 minutes of entrances for this match.
Is that legit? Was it 12 minutes?
Legitimately 12 minutes because it included a DX promo, which, you had to tell the crowd to get ready to suck it. So once you did that, then we got the heels entering. So we fast forward past that. Right now, Randy is doing his RKO pose on the apron, and Mike Chioda is trying to get order. And we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. So again, it's you guys, DX and Punk, against Rated-RKO, Johnny Nitro, Helms, and Mike Knox, who is starting this match with Triple H.
Look at these motley crews.
Very much so. Kelly's on the outside. She's managing Mike Knox at the time.
Sean was just talking utter nonsense over there. I think he was just trying to pop us with what is going on.
Just saying stuff. This is when, so they're doing an inside bit here because Kelly was an exhibitionist at the time.
Yeah, an exhibitionist. And Hunter's telling Sean not to look, right, because he's a Christian.
And sweet chin music on Mike Knox. And he says, "Did you ring the bell?" He says, "I did." Okay, 1, 2, 3. Mike Knox has been picked off.
So
that seems like a Shawn Michaels spot through and through, Matt Hardy.
Who was that? Yeah. He said, like, hey, he said, if we got to get rid of him quick early, he said, like, what if we did, like, we build this spot and do that? And I just, like, cook him, like, who is that? And I act like I don't know he's there. And then, like, Hunter said, oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah, but we'll just do that, kick him. But then, like, Sean went through with it all the way. Like, I think everybody thought he was joking, but he legit did the whole shtick right here and super kick Mike Knox. And, like, who's that? Is he in the match? Oh, so I did good.
But like, does that bode well for someone like Mike Knox? Because we know he was not long for WWE.
Not necessarily, no. And once again, like, I'm not condoning it, but just like it was one of those things where Hunter and Sean, they had the power; they could do whatever they want to do. Like these spots, I love. This was one of my classic spots. The first time he ever did that and slid out and put his arm around somebody, me and Jeff popped huge. So that like, having a little bit of those flashes of classic Shawn Michaels was just amazing.
Yeah, that's an old school Shawn Michaels move right there.
Very much so.
What'd you think of John Morrison here, Johnny Nitro? I mean, he was really just so freaking athletic at the time.
I mean, he's a crazy athlete. Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic. I know Jeff had a long program with him over the IC title, and he really enjoyed it. And I thought Johnny was great. Him and his partner, Joy Mercury, were both great as Eminem too, and we both enjoyed working those guys.
I feel like Johnny's a little out there too, so I feel like he and Jeff really would have hit it off in that sense.
Yeah, Johnny's a unique personality as well. Yeah,
and I mean that endearingly, not as an insult.
Sure.
So you're in the ring here, and now because you're in the ring, we got to get Mr. Gregory in.
He's in there trying to lay in them potatoes, getting me back. I think I'm still.
I think all these years later, Matt, Shane would become one of Triple H's closest confidants in terms of getting talent ready.
No, yeah, he is way up the ladder. Shane is killing it for himself, and I'm so proud of him. He does a great job, and Shane just has such a great wrestling mind and gets things so good. Like I love it because when we talk, like we're on the same page, the way we think about things and see the industry. And maybe part of that has to do with kind of coming up in the WWE system. But I think a lot of that has to do with just like understanding the most basic concepts about pro wrestling and storytelling.
So we saw Adam check in real quick. He mocked your Hardy pose a bit.
Yeah.
Randy Orton doing the work on you.
Here we go.
Oh, you're busted open.
Oh yeah, there we go. That was Shane. It had to be. Shane was trying to cash in a receipt. Randy is the best, man. I know we've talked about that before, but Randy's just so damn good, so damn smooth. He's one of the best. Randy is one of those guys. He's the epitome of the guy that, you know, other talent can say like, "Oh, brother, I'd work with you every day of the week and twice on Sunday."
Who determines that you're going to be the one to take the heat here?
I think we did. I think we
Yep.
just said, you know, right here, like stop a Hardy for a moment, and then we'll get somebody in and keep some momentum coming.
Punk calling for the tag. Here we go. These two had some good chemistry together too.
Yeah, they did. There was one point here I know where there's a famous moment in this match where like we're all kind of standing in the ring, but we cleared the ring out or something, and the crowd was chanting CM Punk, which was a cool moment for him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big hot name coming off Ring of Honor and the Indies.
Yep.
People were very excited to see him in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun spot there.
There we go. We got to be looking at another elimination here.
The Anaconda Vice. Out goes Johnny Nitro.
Hunter and Sean probably said, "Yeah, we'll take our time with that promo." Said if we need to go 12 minutes for the entrance, we really don't need that much time in the actual match.
And it's true with the layout of the match. This almost feels like a house show match and how it's put together. Just, you know, very fan friendly. Get a little heat. It's an easy to digest match.
Yeah, I think sometimes the overly complicated spots and a ton of reversals and a million things, I think those are things are okay to do, but I think they're overdone sometimes too.
Well, also too, the stakes aren't particularly high for this match. It's kind of just five guys teaming together versus five guys teaming together.
That's
so
true.
you can afford to have a little more fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
If this is some winner take all blood feud, I don't think you can have a match like this.
No, it would definitely be different. It would be structured different, and it would feel totally different.
Randy's drop kicks, man, they were so freaking good in his prime. Still good, but back then, oh.
Look at Shane with that bandana on.
I was just about to ask you, how do you feel about the bandana?
I liked it. I thought it fit really well for the Gregory Helms persona. I like these outfits cool. because once again he was just working really hard to be something different from the Hurricane, you know, and he made it work. He made it work, and he actually was a legit heel where he got booed.
It was a cool little gator roll he did there into the knees to the shoulder and neck.
It was, yeah. There we go.
His style was very, very different than a lot of guys in the company.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Shane was ahead of his time in a lot of ways like that. Like he would try and do different things, even things that were like smaller moves. He would try and do them creatively like this, how he dropped down and just dropped it on, you know, one knee. Chin to the knee.
I think this version of Shane would have been very successful in today's version of wrestling.
He would have been. He would have actually. He would have. He would have been more successful than he was during this time period for sure.
Still plenty of success as the Hurricane, of course, but
absolutely. And also he just is so remembered as the Hurricane. You know, the Hurricane was such a popular character. He did so great on merch, and just remembered like Hurricane gave so many fans great memories.
Okay, so Randy hits an RKO there on Punk, but it's broken up, so it's got to be worth something.
Here we go. It's about time to get that DX in the ring.
I was about to say, it's a pretty easy night at the office for DX so far.
Yeah. Yeah, let all the young, healthy guys go out there and do it. That's what I'd be saying right now. Yeah, let all the young, healthy guys go out there and do it. We'll come in and hear our signature shit.
Play the greatest hits. That's all you got to do. Here comes Triple H.
Boom.
We know Paul was such a great heel, but did you like Triple H as a babyface too?
I didn't mind him. He was fine as a babyface, especially when he was doing the DX bit. I think he excelled most as a heel. You know, I've always thought that. But I was okay with him, especially when I was doing the DX thing. He was kind of like the smarmy, smart ass, you know. Oh, there we go.
Break up by Edge.
Getting a little crazy. Bodies all over the place.
Oh, okay. That's got to be super cool for Jeff to get
Yeah,
to do that with Shawn Michaels.
100%. 100%.
Double plancha.
Uh-oh.
Big old spine buster. You're very giddy seeing Shane Helms take a spine buster. Here you come.
Hey, couldn't happen to a better guy.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
That's right. There we go.
Classic Hardys. Bye-bye, Shane Helms. Gregory Helms, pardon me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at these people. Now they're going to take a hike.
Yeah, down to Rated-RKO versus the entirety of Team DX. It's a fun little visual.
This is good.
I dig that. You know what I like about it, Matt? It's different because so many of these Survivor Series matches and War Games matches and stuff like that are built around the heels outnumbering the baby faces. So every now and then it's okay to see the baby faces get the leg up.
Sure, yeah, I do. I mean, it's just a different way to tell a story. And in some scenarios and situations like this, where there weren't really any stakes, it was a match that was kind of about entertaining the crowd and having fun more than anything else. This a match it was perfectly okay to do this in.
You guys just kind of all collaborating here, how you're going to put together moments like this?
Yes.
This is super house showy.
Yeah, this is fun stuff.
Edge is gone. Down to Randy. And I think the crowd can kind of feel what's about to happen here.
Do we have to go get him one more time?
Got him surrounded. He's going through the crowd.
Send the young guys out that can run.
Yeah, I was not saying let the young guys chase him through the crowd.
Send the young guys that have good hips now. That's what I'd be saying now. Send the young guys with good hips to run them down.
I was just saying that. That's so funny. And yeah, I mean, we're in full house show territory here. This is fun stuff. This is good. And pedigree. 1, 2, 3. That is all she wrote. Baby faces win.
Baby faces win. It's a good day at the office. The crowd left very, very happy. That is one thing.
A fun one. What did you think watching it back?
Yeah, it was a fun one. It was great. It was a feel good match. It was a feel good moment, and the crowd enjoyed it. I remember they were hyped that night, and they thought it was great. It was fun.
Yeah, and again, I think the low stakes of the match allowed you to have that type of match construction.
Yes, and also Triple H and Shawn Michaels being the leaders of our team allowed us to have that type of match construction. Shout out, guys! Thanks,
now
HBK.
If you had social media like how it is now, then it'd be like RKO, Team RKO's buried. They're done. It's over.
They'll never work on TV again.
How can they be world champions after that loss? They were going to be Hall of Famers one day.
They were going to be. They were going to be.
You know, there's a fair argument that everyone in that match outside of Mike Knox is a WWE Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no doubt.
With all due respect to Mike Knox, I don't think he had the Hall of Fame accolades for his career, but I think obviously everyone on your team is.
Yes.
Randy, Edge, I think John Morrison, Johnny Nitro, I think he had a Hall of Fame worthy career in WWE. And certainly Hurricane, if you were to ask me unbiasedly, I think he, as an entertainer, as a mind, he earns a spot there. So I think that's pretty cool, man. 9 out of 10 people are
for sure
WWE legends in that match.
Yes, no doubt. Every like you said, all those people would qualify for a Hall of Fame bid.
Anything else you want to add on that?
No, man, that was fun. That was a fun little match. Actually made my day.
What did you guys say afterwards?
I've been having a great day already. That just made it a little more fantastic, a little more wonderful.
What'd you guys say afterwards when you go backstage?
We're happy with it. You know, the crowd was where we wanted the crowd to be. They were happy. They were content. We put smiles on faces. We put happiness in hearts, and that was our whole goal.
Love to hear it, man. Love to hear it. That's great. Always cool to see you get to check something off the bucket list. So you got to be in your 5-on-5 match here, and the Hardys reign supreme once again. Who would have thunk it? Well, the reality is, if you listen to this podcast every single week, you know the Hardys always reign supreme. So you can head on over to advertisewithhardy.com and get your brand out in front of that supreme Matt Hardy brand. Advertisewithhardy.com is where you're going to get your business out in front of thousands of listeners and viewers every single week. That is advertisewithhardy.com. Matt, anything else you'd like to add this week?
No, man. It was a fun week, fun discussion. I loved some of our discussion about AEW. That'll be exciting to see some of that get reported, how it gets reported. I love it. But yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's an interesting time in the wrestling world, and I love the fact that TNA is back on an upswing. They actually have a lot of big moves planned for 2025 that I'm privy to right now, that things that they're working on and going to be doing and trying to evolve the company, trying to get back into being more of a mainstream act in many capacities. WWE right now still white hot. AEW, you know, they signed their new TV deal, so they're going to be good for a while, and I just hope they can continue to grow and become greater and better.
Sounds great, man. I'm with you on all accords. The words have been spoken. We'll see you next week right here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
Die!